Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach, and we are currently taking a look at some of the work that I completed on stream. So we took this roundabout here and converted it, made it an oval about, and added a one-way couplet here going into this area. Now, I do want to point out a couple of things. First of all, this is currently off. One of the reasons why is the rail network configuration and general layout of this particular train cargo terminal is operating so poorly that it's taking down the entire roadway network with it. So we have a special guest that will be helping us fix this and potentially the Bob Ross Memorial Interchange, Lee Hawkins. So very excited about that. And I know that a number of the folks in the stream were very excited about that as well. So we added this. We also went over here and added a connection to this roundabout interchange from the farm, which has really been helpful with traffic flow. If we take a look, we're looking pretty good up here now. This roundabout's doing really well. We're doing good here. Traffic flows at 83%, which I'm very excited about. As soon as I say that, 82. But that's not what we're worrying about today. Today, we are going to focus on the redevelopment of the former Hamilton Hills farm area. See, moving the farm up here was only half of the equation, and the other half is actually rebuilding the farm and redeveloping it into a new neighborhood. So this is something that the Hamiltons are definitely interested in. Getting into development, it's an interesting topic because you might wonder who a developer is, and you might think, well, there is someone that is very particularly into development, a development company, and that is generally true. However, the origins of those companies are often places that you might not expect. It might be a dentist that is very into development, and with some of the earnings from their practice, they decide to go into development. It might be a farmer who had lots of land holdings that decided to begin developing those land holdings as they wind down their farm operations or relocate them. Or it might be someone who is a home builder who is building spec homes or building homes on individual lots, saves their money, decides to buy a spot of land and build all the homes in that area. So developers are a number of people, and in this case, it will be the Hamiltons. So Philip Hamilton is looking at this area and seeing major opportunities. And one of the things that we're going to need to do before we develop this is take a look and see what would hold this area back from development. The number one thing is pollution. And if we take a look here, there are really two sources of pollution. We've got our flour mills over here, and we've got our fish factory. So we are going to take these uses and relocate them, which I think is absolutely totally rational and would happen in real life. Some of the uses, such as this bakery, we're going to keep here. This is, if we take a look at our land uses, a commercial corridor, and I think that this fits quite well there, and we'll have a lot of synergy. We are going to relocate some of these warehouses, clean them up, make them a little bit nicer. Having an open air warehouse like this is not appropriate for a commercial district in a developing area, and we are going to respect that by having more enclosed warehouses, something that fits in a little bit better, and hiding those behind some of the core buildings in this area. So let's get started by relocating some of these flour mills, and we're going to bring those up to our farm. So we do want to pay attention here where are our polluting uses, and you see that we have some by the animal farm and nothing over here by the fields, and for the most part we want to keep it like that. So I am going to change the roadway network over here a little bit. This is in response to some feedback that I received that I really appreciated, and the realities that we're going to have moving some of these farm buildings over here. So first of all, I'm going to expand the farm just a little bit. So we're going to grab a small crop field and place just a few of these. And I want to run the road around here. And I think this is a little bit more organic in terms of a roadway layout here. Then we're also going to pull this up around here. And I'm going to make a roadway connection. We're going to do a few things back here that I think are going to really help things out. First of all, this allows us to take our flour mills and back them away from all of this farm use, because we don't want polluting uses right next to our farm fields. That doesn't make any sense. But we absolutely want to see some connectivity to this area, because we're going to be taking our crops and taking them over to the flour mill. So something we need to think about. One of the other things I want to do is, from the Discord, there were comments stating that it's better to vary up some of our fields in close proximity because of the exact same phenomenon that we experienced during the pandemic. Proximity of fields of one type of crop means that they're more susceptible to diseases. So you'd want to change these up, and rather than having gigantic blocks of the exact same type of field, you'd absolutely want to change these up. So the other thing I missed here is a greenhouse, which I wanted to have so that in the winter time, when things aren't growing quite as well, maybe this is the Wisconsin in me, coming out to rear its ugly head, we want to make sure that we have the ability to get some seedlings going in here. So we're going to just vary these up just a little bit. And I think that that works really well. I really like the way that looks now. To mix it up a little bit, and now we don't have such a dense concentration of the same sorts of uses in one area. All right, so let's move our flour mills over here, and we're going to also need to grab wherever we're storing our flour. So we're going to put these, oh, no we're not. We're going to place these as soon as we can, which means that we need to extend our farm area out. And our farm area is really blobby right now and pretty ugly. We're going to fix that. There we go. So now we've got some connections there, and actually we should probably circulate this. Never know when we get a disaster, so there we go. And we also need to move over whatever warehouses have flour, which interestingly is this open air warehouse, which doesn't make a ton of sense. So I think we're going to actually eliminate this in favor of a warehouse that has cover. And the last thing you want is a bunch of wet flour. That wouldn't make all that much sense, would it? There we go, just adding a little bit of detailing around there. We're going to need to jump the power somehow, and I think I have an idea for that as well. So one of the assets that we haven't placed yet is our lovely riding stables. And I would think that if you are living on this farm, this would be something you'd be very interested in. And the other thing to realize about riding stables is that often you will see folks that don't live on a farm but want to have horses. You know, they will rent a space in a horse barn or something of that nature. I've got friends who do that, and very important amenities to have if that's something that you want to do. So that said, the terrain here is really challenging for that. We're going to need to clean it up, so our favorite way of hiding some of our imperfections is just a bit of landscaping. All right, just giving this a bit more of a feeling of seclusion and, you know, some fencing to really make this feel like it's its own area. So I like that a lot. I think that's nice. You see someone, you know, maybe doing some dressage or something. I don't know. Whatever they want to do. There we go. So we've got that out there, and it really, I think, starts to bring this area together a little bit more. Let's see what we have out here. Oh. We're going to kill that house again. That's a temporary line. We won't need that forever. Okay, so we are going to have everything that we need up here. We're going to need to move a couple of things down here and make sure that when we're looking at our bakery, we're going to need another flour mill. We're going to need crops, and we're going to need our animal products. So things that we need to incorporate into this area. Now, I don't want to change any of the right-of-way here. The existing right-of-way will stay. It is what it is. That often happens. The fish factory we are going to move, though. This is a polluting use, and this is not the highest and best use of this property at this point in time. So we have 3 fish factories over here, but that said, we've got a lot of fishing industry. I think we're going to try to get away without adding another one for the time being, and if things seem to become overrun, we'll add one in. But truthfully, we only have a few routes over here anyway, so running it down there is probably not the end of the world. In the future, maybe what we need to do is work in another fish market in the old part of Verde Beach. It's been a while since we've revisited this area, and I would absolutely think that particularly in the 7th Street farmers market, that would be something that would be very desirable in this area. Anyway, we're back to over here, and we need to start thinking about what we're doing. Let's get rid of these trees. We'll redo the landscaping in the future. And that would be something that, even though I think the city would fight that tooth and nail, the developer is going to want to come in and completely remove all the trees if at all possible. It makes their development life much easier. And sometimes the city's able to come in at platting. We're going to save some of these, particularly in this area. We're going to try to respect the farming tradition of this area by saving the trees and maybe even having a crop field in here. And that will be the way that we're able to honor that. However, in some of these areas where we're looking to wholesale redevelop this, we're not going to do that. So here, I want to move some of these warehouses. So we've got unique factory products. We've got a small warehouse. And we're going to add in another small warehouse. Relocate this one. This is the height of realism. So we just remove these. So this will be for unique factory goods. We'll get rid of this. We don't want anything open air anymore. And then we're also going to need a place for our crops to come in. We also are going to need flour. So let's get that in here. And I like these small grain silos because it feels, to me at least, like it's a little bit more plausible that these could be here in this area. You get some of those larger ones and it feels like a rural area that is converted over time. So that is not what we're looking to do here. I'm going to throw all my snap twos back on. And oh, that is what I was hoping to avoid. I want to either run a road back here. And I can't do that here. The terrain is a real mess. Let's look. I'm going to move this stuff over. Call a quick mulligan. And we'll see what's happening here. And what you see is this is actually the high point. So everything's sloping down to this. If we had the ability to create ponds, we'd probably have some sort of pond, likely in this area. Not possible here, but this is not super desirable. Not a lot we can do about it, though, in the vanilla game. So I think we are going to try to work with it rather than work against it. And this should allow me to at least get a road through here. Hopefully that road will make it possible for me. Oh, I cannot because of the existing right-of-way. Yeah, you can see it's a real challenge. There's not a lot that we can do here because of what we have, short of just relocating this and maybe adding some paths through here. There's just not, it's difficult to work within the existing right-of-way. And that to me is fairly realistic. You often end up in situations in real life where you have existing right-of-way that is not what you'd prefer it to be, but it's what you have, so you're gonna have to deal with that. So we're gonna add a little bit of commercial back here, and maybe this could be a neighborhood serving commercial use. And then we'll try to hide some of the lumpies and bumpies with a bit of landscaping because this isn't great. We're going to keep everything fairly packed in here because this is a redevelopment site. And because of that, they are looking at what would make, the developer that is, they're looking at what would make this pencil out from a financial standpoint, for better or for worse. So what that is likely going to mean, and you might have seen this if you've seen newer commercial developments or even newer residential developments, homes and businesses in new developments are generally, particularly in redevelopment areas, really packed in. And that is because it can be really difficult when you are paying for the cost of the building that you're demolishing, the demolition of said building, and the development of a new building to make everything pencil out without some pretty dramatic demolition work and rather without some pretty dramatic expenditures on the new buildings, so you end up with more luxury buildings, and without packing the buildings in maybe a little bit closer than folks would appreciate. And that can draw some opposition. That said, in this particular area, there's not going to be a ton of opposition because the neighbors are so happy to have some of the polluting industries moving out of here that they are going to accept this. And again, we've cut off our power here. There we go. So let's get these set up appropriately. So we've got our unique factory goods. This needs to be flour. This is animal products. We've got our crops coming in here. That's everything that the bakery needs to make pastries. So everyone loves this. Everyone loves a pastry. So we are all happy. I'm going to add some parking behind this bakery site. do think that's fairly rational that that would happen. This is going to be a major employer in the area, and we will add some pedestrian paths to clean up some of our concrete work. It'll make things look a little bit nicer. There we go. So let's think about our zoning a little bit, at least in our existing development area. And what we're going to do is continue this as a Main Street type corridor and start to fill in some of these areas where we haven't had development. Now, one of the things that's going to be a challenge for us is that we've got some of these areas that previously had things in the way, and Hamilton is going to come through and try to acquire as much property as he can to develop this area out. So I'm going to turn off road guidelines and try to run this right along the fence here. There we go. That is perfect. And it's going to be really unfortunate. This is going to cul-de-sac out. There's no real good way to connect this unless we can make a connection under the bridge. But again, the question you'd have to ask yourself there is the development potential of this land great enough to justify the building of the road? And to that, I would say no. In fact, I think it would be a tough challenge in many of these areas to make it work right. But we're going to go for it anyway. We're going to have some larger lot residential back here. And it'll be a tough sell, but also not. The reason why is it's going to have access to high quality transit via these bike facilities. So that's a huge draw here. And access to Old Verde Beach. There's not a lot in the way of transit. We've got the monorail going right past it. We're not going to add a stop there. Doesn't make sense. And so they're going to see this and have the negative impacts of this, but they're not going to directly benefit from it. So that's certainly going to be a concern. That said, it's easier to accept that when you've moved into an area and this is your experience here than it is to have that retrofitted after the fact. Oh yeah, now we got our water pipes underneath the road, right where they belong. And I want to make sure that we're making a trail connection here. This is going to be a really critical connection in this area, and folks would be livid if it weren't made. In fact, we're going to make this a bike connection because that is what this is, a bike trail. So there we go, and I'm wondering, when we take a look at this area, we've got a whole bunch of industrial roads, and we need to get those upgraded. So the very first thing I want to look at is bike facilities. Are there places where we could add bike facilities where we get a lot of bang for our buck? And I think right here, in converting this, that little loop right there would add quite a bit. We could even come back through here and have a little neighborhood loop through here. So those are the types of things that I think, particularly when this area is redeveloping and the city is requesting new infrastructure, that we would certainly be looking for, because it's great to get a developer to pay for it rather than the city itself. So here we've got this little pedestrian connection. I'm curious to see if this is actually going to work to get bikes across, but we're going to go for it and see if it actually does end up working. Down here, even though this is the Main Street corridor for this area, we're going to send trees through here. Part of the reason is we've got our factory here. Part of the reason is just the aesthetic quality that we want to create in this area. We want this to feel like an area of pedestrian activity. And I think that adding in some street trees, making this a special area because of that, would be very, very desirable. And then along this other commercial corridor, we're going to upgrade the trees here. This is an older area, so we've got those little tiny trees that over 200 years haven't grown. So we're gonna make it happen right now. Here we go. All right, so we've got this area starting to fill in. What do we do in the rest of this area? So first of all, there is a height restriction here, which I appreciate because we've still got some uses here that maybe don't have a lot of synergy with residential uses. We've also got this corridor back here that, this isn't fronting this collector, and I appreciate that. As the planner, I would recommend that we maintain that. So we're going to have some offices back here. The reason why I'm going with office and not commercial is commercial needs a lot of activity, direct access to develop appropriately. And this, though it has a lot of visibility, you're going to see the rear of these buildings. So four-sided architecture would be very important here. And in the vanilla game, that's not something that I can guarantee. When I say four-sided architecture, I mean you come and look at some of these buildings. This is not... We've got a really well-articulated front. On the sides, it's okay. We've got some windows at least. Sometimes developers will hold all of those off. And then in the rear, we don't have a trash enclosure or anything like that. We've just got an open dumpster with a whole bunch of refrigeration units. As the planner, we would likely look to have these put on the roof and have some parapets around here to hide that, and look to have a trash enclosure that matches the building materials, so that it just looks a little bit nicer when you have that completely visible. We want to make sure that the investments that we're making in this corridor really last for the long term, and that would be a problem in my estimation. So coming back to our build, we are going to have some streets that just allow parking along here. I think that's going to be important in the commercial area. You'd have a lot of the business owners barking about this if we didn't have that. And one of the things that we even may want to consider in this area would be parking lots if we took all of the on-street parking away. And that would be something that they would absolutely look for. And we could certainly do that. Let me actually see what that would fit like. So we'll kind of simulate that over-parked downtown, rural kind of downtown feel, and have a ton of parking behind here. And then right behind that, we're gonna have all of our residential uses. So unfortunately, I believe that this is gonna front the wrong street, and there's really not much that I can do about that. So we've added a couple of connections through here with our paths, which I think is really, really valuable if we want to get access to the parking and make this the radius that this parking would work a little bit better. It's also nice to have the cut through connection here to get to the other side of the block if that's something that you're looking to do. So through here, we've got our uses. We're filling these in, and we are going to have some higher density residential in this area. Now I don't want to take out these trees. We're going to require that those are maintained, and we'll get rid of some of these crazy power lines. And I don't love putting this on this collector. It's a very busy road. The only way to mitigate that is to have more landscaping, and in reality we'd probably look to have maybe a slightly larger setback depending. I mean, this is a transit corridor, which is something to consider. And actually, that might be the best solution in this particular area, would be to focus on transit. And I'm going to use the arterial connection here because we're really getting two general purpose traffic lanes. And then this is directing the traffic into this downtown type area. We're giving that dedicated left-hand turn, the through lane, the right-hand turn lane. I think that's a very, very good design right there. And then through here, we're going to have some more residential uses, some lower density residential. We're going to add a path through here. I don't think we could justify a roadway connection, but a path would be absolutely needed. And then the other thing we're going to need to look at in this area are city services. So as I add this through here, though this isn't very centrally located in terms of an area for an elementary school or a library, I do think that it would be an area that we'd want to consider because of some of the uses in general proximity over here. Not the most desirable to locate next to, so let's take a look. And what you see is we do have some existing elementary schools within close proximity, definitely within busing range, so I think we can feel pretty confident in leaving it as is. High school availability is pretty good. University, we're not going to handle with any vanilla buildings. So we come through here, and at the developer's expense, we're going to have them plant trees around this building. That does happen, where you have a developer come in, and to make their development happen, they'll need to provide landscaping for surrounding uses, either to protect the existing uses, or in this case, to provide a bit of separation and buffer from noise and sound from the uses that they are proposing. The other thing that we've missed through here are any sorts of parks. So I'm going to pause this for a moment while we consider some of the development opportunities for parks. Now, I've said it one time and I'll say it a million. we need a dog park. That is like the #1 request in a new development. we get a dog park, we get a dog park. That makes all of these older developments very excited about this new one. So that's about all that we're going to have here. There are other parks in close proximity on either side of this, but having at least one here would be very, very valuable for this neighborhood. So there we go. We're going to add some landscaping back here to make this feel a little bit more separated. And we could absolutely even add fences in between these lots to give that large lot separated development feel through here. So let's go ahead and do that. And I haven't fenced in everything, but I've fenced in most things. And I made a couple of very large lots over here. So I would love to see the land values pick up. Oh, and look at that land value. Those are absolutely going to become maxed out buildings. So the reason why I like this so much is you sometimes see these kind of funky lots in redevelopment areas where you're just able to get something a little bit more substantial. So we're going to do that here. And the other thing that I want to do is come through. We'll give them a little garden or something of that nature. And then we'll give one of the yards some significant playground equipment. So that might seem like overkill, but in some of these areas you'd see exactly that. So the last thing I want to do is really give a feeling of seclusion to these homes. And these two lots could subsidize a significant portion of the rest of the development. So that's one of the reasons why I give so much attention to those ones. In fact, in many developments, you'll see those larger lots actually belonging to the developer themselves. They decide to make a neighborhood that they would live in, which I respect that. Make a neighborhood that you'd want to live in, not just one that makes you money, and you'll have a better outcome. So we'll leave that like that. We know that the Hamiltons live up at the farm, but it's not to say that they don't have other partners in the area that are helping with this. We'll add some additional trees through here. We've got a bunch of the old vanilla trees, but we can certainly pepper in some of these newer ones. And let me tell you, Myrtle likes this. So that's an interesting addition to the city in my mind. And I could see a tree planting project coming through here. These are not useful green fields in the way of, it being a place where you could recreate. You wouldn't want to recreate behind, this emergency shelter. So I could certainly see this being an area where we get some trees planted, and that's what we're going to do right now. There we go. Just fills it in a little bit and makes it feel like more of a unique place. Now this road is interesting in that with the path connection, it becomes an incredibly critical bike corridor. So while we don't have vehicular traffic, we are going to see a lot of bike traffic. And I'd be curious to see if in Verde Beach they experience some of the questions about e-bikes that we see in cities right now. There's certainly a concern for some folks, and for others, it's a really great opportunity for people who might otherwise rule cycling out as an opportunity for them, saying, I don't want to be sweaty when I get to wherever I'm going. I don't want to be stinky, whatever. Or I just don't have the stamina to bike. It opens up the option for those folks to become bikers. So they're here to stay, regardless of how people feel about it. That said, they are a controversial topic. And I'm sure that would be a topic that is bridged over in this area. So I'm extending out the roadway network here. What we're doing is trying not to do anything to demolish the existing network, but we want to make use of this area and have as much saleable land as possible. Now I mentioned preserving some of the trees here, which means that we're not developing. Now to resolve that, we're going to add in a cul-de-sac, or maybe even if we want to maintain the connectivity, which I always want to, we can add in a curved road back here and then add some fencing along this road. And that will be a way that we can preserve these trees while still developing some of this land. Now, I think that the Hamiltons would also look to have some sort of connection back here. This would be very controversial. So this is land that they weren't using for their farm, but they owned. Not uncommon to have extra land beyond the existing farm area. That said, what would be more concerning would be some of the noise from the highway and then the lack of connectivity into the existing neighborhood. We're not going to use eminent domain to create a roadway connection. We're going to connect the only spot that we logically can, which is right here. We're going to turn this road in, and then we're going to add some connections through our pedestrian network. And then we'll do some of those classy things to get extra developable land. We'll just come up here and have a loop-de-loo. And for this, we'll just have that terminate out there. So this to me looks like a rational, okay, maybe rational is the wrong word, but it looks like a plausible roadway network for this area. So we'll come through here, and what's really unique about this is we have the opportunity to establish a grid through here, and that's just not something that you normally have. We have this existing grid that fits really nicely, and we're operating within that. So here I'm going to bring this back, and this is not formal park space, but I would say that this would be an amenity that is cherished by the neighborhood, and they would look to preserve this. So they would fight the Hamiltons tooth and nail as they look to develop their neighborhood. And to get this land developable, they're going to promise a trail back here and to preserve all of the trees, dedicating that to the city. And the city would gladly take that. Now, at the same time, the Hamiltons are going to say, all right, well, can we connect up through? And the neighborhood's going to say, absolutely not. I don't want to see bikers biking in between my wonderful home here, my historic home in the Garden City. So we're not going to do that. Because of that, we're going to have to find a different location. The commercial area is probably the one place we could work this in. So we're going to take out just a couple of trees here to make that connection in there. And this is great for the commercial area because now they're getting a steady stream of passersby. They could even add some seating back here for folks if they didn't already have a whole bunch back here. And what is this? A place for your stuff. It looks like a kind of a beer garden or something like that for me, to me, so makes some sense. And now you've preserved this as a valuable area. But the Hamiltons are going to look at this and think, we also could have some connections to our neighborhood, make this more valuable for our neighborhood than it is for the new one. And don't think for a minute that wouldn't happen. With this power line here, that's an excellent place to add trails, and you'll often see that they will kind of bob and weave in between some of those high power transmission lines. And we've got this lovely connection right there. Here, we could even do something where we have another path connecting up, and we're absolutely going to take advantage of that opportunity. So we'll have a bike network back here and plant some trees to block some of the noise that we would inevitably expect to see from the highway. It's going to be a lot cheaper to require the developer to plant trees than it would be for the city to come in here and request from the DOT some sort of sound barrier, which they're likely to get rejected for anyway because they're expensive. So there we go. So we've got all these connections now. We know we need to do something with them. So that's going to be something we need to consider as we go through this area. So let's do that. Let's start upgrading our roads. Most of this is residential. We're going to pack most of it in there pretty tight, but we are going to try to maintain some connectivity to our bike network. So as we still have roads that upgrade over here, we're going to do so. We'll run that past the historic farm and right up to this bike facility right here. We're going to leave this. This will be fine as a local connection. And then we're going to have trees basically everywhere here. Now, this is really idealistic of me, but I'm going to get into it. I think that in the US in particular, we have way too many streets where we have street parking all the way up and down in a local street. Now, the reason why I have such a problem with that is oftentimes zoning codes will require developers to provide parking for each bedroom in the house, including the children's bedrooms. So let's say you have a 3-bedroom house. There's a very real chance that a new development could require 3 parking stalls on the parcel. So that'll be a 2-car garage and then some driveway. So you end up, with 4 stalls minimum, and maybe they even add an extra one on. So you end up with 5 parking stalls on one parcel. So that's great, except now we're looking at a situation where nobody's parking on the street. So you have your street, and let's say you have 10-foot lanes right here. So if we had just a regular street, we've got the 10-foot lane on either side, that's 20 feet. Then we add 8 for parking plus the curb and gutter, add a foot on there. And what are we looking at? We are looking at well over 30 feet of pavement, sometimes in the upwards of 40, 42 feet of pavement. And what that tells a person as they're driving down the road, a straight road that is super wide with no one parked on it, it says, go faster. So we don't want people to go faster. That is not what our goal is here. We want traffic calming. And I don't mean speed humps or stop signs every single block. That's not necessary. What we need are streets that are narrow. That is the way that you get people to slow down. So we're going to do that. We are using a little bit of psychology there, making people feel uncomfortable. Now it's interesting. I see we have a bus bump out here, which makes me want to look. Why is that like that? That is really interesting. I don't know that we have any routes here, but I want to take a look. Yeah, that is bizarre. I do not know why we are seeing this here. Strange, absolutely strange. I'm curious, if I upgrade this to another road type, still there. Well, I found a bug. I'm going to delete this and add it back in. Still there. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm not going to say anything about it if you don't. All right, let's protect some trees. So we're going to come through here and add in some fences where we do not want zoning to take these trees out. We'll do the exact same thing on this side. And this is something I could absolutely see happening, where the developer is required to come in and put in some sort of fence here to block the trees from being cut down by the homeowner. And that happens all the time. So there we go. Got that there. We're going to do the exact same thing along this arterial. And I left a gap there because I think we have an opportunity for a pedestrian connection. We had to go sideways, but we made it work. There we go. That is some undevelopable land. So I think that that is a good change. We've got one more location for that. There we go. Not the most beautiful fences in the world, but they are the most functional. So we'll take that. Here, this is going to be farm. So I want to get this set up. We're going to have some illustrative farm fields here to harken back to days gone by, and we can consider these community gardens. Now I know that the game is just going to treat it like it's a big farm field that we're adding in, but I still want to indulge me, I guess. We're going to pretend that it is a farm field that is operational for the community. That looks bad because this is currently set to greenhouse. Let's set this to oranges. This one to pears. That is much better. And now we're going to send some paths through there so people could reach the fields. Try not to disturb the trees in this area at all. And I'm looking at the Hamilton House as now being a museum. Now, obviously I can't do that in the vanilla game, but that is what we are going to pretend that it is. And I apologize for having that garbage overlay there. I got distracted with what I was doing and really got into it. So, it's one of those things. Okay, so here we're going to have a mixture of commercial. We'll transition down into this. And here we'll have a little bit of higher density. We'll get rid of this power line. I think that we should be not safe, but it'll develop soon enough. And then we're going to transition very rapidly into lower density. Now we need to have some parks back here because even though we've created quote unquote parks, these aren't real parks. And we know that, and because of that, we're going to need to make sure we have amenities. So things like neighborhood tennis courts and basketball courts, I think are really important to make a place feel just a bit more organic. So that'll be a fairly significant complex. You come through here and there are multiple games of basketball. I think back to there's a tournament that went on in one of the towns that I grew up in called Gus Macker. It was a basketball tournament and it brought people in from the entire region to come and play basketball. And this is where a tournament like this could occur. So we have 3 basketball courts right here. You could have multiple games ongoing. 3 tennis courts. Maybe this draws in state for tennis, things of that nature into this area. So I think that's a good addition over here. We're not going to have schools, but you better believe that the developer would have some space set aside for some uses that would be very desirable. So we're going to have a library. I know we have one over here, but they're going to want something similar to that in this area. And considering they're probably looking to have a school over here, and they're not going to get that, we'll give them a library. Normally these libraries would be a lot smaller, and they could be within this close proximity when there's that much density as there is over here. We could certainly see another one in this area and not be overly concerned about that. I also want to look at our other parks and see if we can have one large centralized gathering place, and maybe that's the one place that we break the grid, and that could be right through here. So this, rather than funneling a bunch of traffic through, this will absolutely function as a local road because we've broken the grid here, and that is part of the power of the grid, is the ability to break it. And the nice thing is we still maintain that pedestrian connectivity through here even though we've broken up the grid. And I was really hoping I could sneak a fence in here, but it's just not going to work, and that's okay. Sometimes you can't get away with everything that you like to. So that's one of the things here, is I'm just not going to be able to do a ton. We'll add a couple of flowers at some of these entries that are actually manually placed. And no sneaking those in here. That's not happening. All right. So coming through here, I want to change some of the trees that we have on the road as well. We've got all these vanilla trees. Let's go ahead and get these upgraded. There we go. And I called these vanilla trees, the ones that were there before, but now the trees I just placed are also vanilla, which is absolutely wonderful. Through these areas that we've already developed, we'll even add some more landscaping through here. Nothing dramatic, but just a couple of things. There we go, and now I think that we are just about ready. I want to see our police and fire coverage, because, it's Verde Beach after all. We've got fire coverage here. I think that we could certainly use a little bit more coverage over here. So we're going to add that in. Let's look at our police coverage over here. Also not very good. So we'll have a little city services bay or of sorts over in this area. I think this would be pretty unpopular because of the amount of noise that these would generate, but we're still going to have them. We'll try to make it a little bit better by having a little node of commercial activity in this area. Either way, we've got a lot of train traffic, so it's not the worst idea in the world to have some commercial in this area. Now the rest of this, we're going to just grab our brush, and because we've been careful with our fences, we can just come through and place these fairly liberally without giving it a ton of thought. Now, one of the things that's interesting to notice is that we gave some extra space to lots over here when this was being developed. It was a greenfield. Easier to do that at that point in time. Certainly more challenging now. So I want to make sure we've got water here. And whoa, those are ugly, ugly, ugly water pipes. Let's get those fixed as we look to improve this anyway. There we go, looking good. Now we do need to get a row of trees back here, a pretty healthy smattering of them, because this is a really loud area. And look at that, we've gone too far on our zoning. We need to take it back a notch. So call a quick mulligan on some of these buildings. We're very, very sorry. We should have never approved that, but we did. And now we're going back on our word. In reality, there are likely those one or two things that a planner wishes that they could take their recommendation away from. That whenever they approved it, it seemed good, like a good idea at the time. And in hindsight, being 2020, they maybe they like to take it back. That would be one of those things. So, luckily, this is a game and I can take it back right away. Okay, so that is enough landscaping to make living here a little bit more palatable. We're also going to require a fence along here. So nothing that is going to be completely blocking of all the noise, but it's going to help quite a bit. And we're going to use our forestry fence here. I think it's a good fit. So I look at this as being similar to a privacy fence. And then up to the woods, I'm going to add in some scrub, just so it looks a little bit more natural. Because sometimes when you have those trees just sitting there, it can look a little bit unnatural, and it makes me a little uneasy. So we'll just come through and add this. There we go. That feels like a really substantial and significant barrier now from the highway. And it creates a park-like atmosphere that I really, really appreciate. So I am curious, as we wait for this to fully develop, what does our pollution look like in this area now? You see that there's a little bit from the bakery, but really that's manageable. We've got parking to block some of that. So I'm going to let this fill in, and we'll take inventory of it once we're done and clean a couple things up. Okay, so we've seen a lot of this fill in and it's looking really, really good. But as I was staring at this, as buildings were popping up, I noticed a couple of things that I really think we need to improve. So let's pop in here, and one of those things is right here. We've got this bike network, and then we've got this multi-use path right here, and you see platoons of people walking up here. And I think we could get more bicyclists up here if we gave a little bit more thought and consideration to our bike network. So we're going to add that right here. I'm going to add a node right here and upgrade that to a bike facility. And then through here, I zoned a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't actually mean to. In fact, I think that this could be a really nice little amenity for this area. So let's treat it with a little bit of respect and make it a special place. Okay, so I think that this improves this area quite a bit. Little walking path around here, a playground, which we don't really have many amenities for children in this area, so this is a big improvement in my opinion. And it's just something that would separate this neighborhood from some of the others in the city. I also think that we could have some more trees back around here to separate this path from some of the residential uses through here. And then we should give some more thought and consideration to our bike network once again. So we're going to, again, extend a path through here. And then I'm going to make a critical bike connection right here. We'll break this fence and convert the road. So this would be something that the city would be willing to do to make this a special place. And now we have a solid connection into the rest of our citywide bicycle network. So that, in my estimation, is a very valuable connection, and I really like that one. I'm going to also try to make this connection go the right way. We'll see. That might be a tall order. That's pretty ugly, but I think it might actually function like this. So we'll just add that tree there and pretend it doesn't look bad. And then the last thing I noticed is over here, we've got a couple of roads we need to upgrade, and we've got all of this density, and I think it's a real missed opportunity not to do something next to this area with the existing trees. So we're going to pop this on back through here, go into our parks, and make this a place for children. That's one of the things with parks that sometimes, or with apartments that sometimes gets missed, is what do all the children do? And then we'll shield that from some of the road noise to make it feel like more of a private and special place. We'll use some of these colorful jacaranda trees that look really great. Really like that. And there's a repeating pattern here of some of the office buildings, and I really like that as well. I think that feels fairly natural. Well, you know what I mean. It's the sort of thing you might expect to see as a developer attempts to reuse an existing architectural design. It's a lot cheaper to do that. So if they are trying to do something in mass, trying to save money, keep the prices of these properties down, I would absolutely expect to see that. So I think we're looking pretty good. We need to add a few trees in between some of these properties. And oh, I really, really like this. You come in, one of the things that I like about redeveloping rather than trying to completely demolish this and do something new is you get a neighborhood that blends in well with the existing fabric of the community that you've already built, burns and all, and it just blends. So there's certainly differences. We've got the European suburbia building style over here. So the building style changes, but the roadway network doesn't, and it feels well integrated and connected. So that is the hallmark of a well-designed neighborhood, in my mind, is it's connected. There are multiple ways to get around. If we come through here and take a look at transit, we've got a number of bus stops in this area that allow at least the people along these main corridors. It's difficult in this area to serve this well without a new route, but it's looking really good. That said, what do I see here? I see something that I need to take a look at. It's a fire and a brief city tour. And as nightfall sets on our new neighborhood, we can see that it is well developed and it integrates well with the existing area. Now it's quite a bit brighter. That's because it's a denser, more urban neighborhood. And that is as a result of the pressure with property values. But I think it would still have some of the feel of the Garden City. And when we look at our property values, I think that we'll see that the property values taper off a little bit. Some of this is being a little bit more affordable than what is here in the Garden City, but that's kind of by design. I do want to shrink up some of our districts. We've got a lot going on here. Okay, so we just took Hamilton Hills Farm back a little bit. And now when we look at this district, we have the Hamilton TIF district. Let's make sure this covers this entire area. And let's actually, we're going to rename this now. And why don't you help me with this? I could certainly use a good name for this new neighborhood. So if you've got a great idea, please, 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 in the comments, drop your naming ideas and let me know what we should call this new neighborhood. If you have a compelling story for why we should call it that, I always look for stories. That is certainly something that is helpful because neighborhoods are named for reasons. It's not just random. Thornton District is random. We don't want random. We want well thought out and well executed. And truthfully, I've got two neighborhoods here because this little area right here with some of our older buildings, we're going to separate that off into its own neighborhood as well. So we've got the Thornton District and the Sheffield District, and we need two names. And I'm curious about these. What are we looking at with their land value? 61, not surprising. That has a lot of industrial type activity. Over here in the Thornton District, 60, which is a little bit more surprising to me. I think this is going to improve. Verde Palms, 62, and the Garden City is one of the most expensive places in all of Verde Beach at 93. So Lewis Garden City, Lewis Market District, very expensive. Congress Park, 71. The values taper off, and I like that, truthfully, because that means that we have places where it is more affordable. I have no doubt that this would gentrify and become a more expensive place over time because it's a very good location. But for the time being, I appreciate that we have some affordable housing back here. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this build. I've had a lot of fun building this one, and I think that it really came together well. Looking forward to seeing what Lee Hawkins does over in this area. But for the time being, we've constructed something that I think makes a lot of sense and fits in well in this area. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. If you did, please consider hitting that like button. If you aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I really can't wait to see you in the next one, be it a video or a live stream. Take care. Bye-bye.